My name is Diana Yisley, and I am the chair of the Aging and Disability Commission for the town of Simsbury. And we started this, I don't even know how many years ago at this point, but we took on the initiative to become an AARP age-friendly community. And this Serving for Aging Well in Simsbury is part of the process to get this designation. So we're here today to answer your questions, not only to answer your questions, to debut our survey. So it is available to take starting today, both on a hard copy as well as online. And I'll make sure everybody has that information before we leave. But to also answer your questions about the survey and give you some more information on what we're doing. I want to make sure we introduce the other members of our panel today. We have Tia Murphy, who is the AARP president of AARP Connecticut. Is that great? Oh, she is a volunteer. Okay. And Amber Abul, who is our, thank you, deputy first selectman for the town of Simsbury. It's been a long day. So I am actually going to turn it over to Tia at this point to tell you a little bit about the AARP age-friendly community designation, if that's okay.
Sure. Can people hear me?
The TV won't pick it up unless you're at the microphone.
We're going to the microphone. Okay. Well, thank you all. And this is a wonderful turnout. So thank you all for coming. AARP, as you know, is an organization that everybody thinks about as being discounts and insurance, right? But it's much more than that. I'm on the non-for-profit side of that. I am a volunteer. I am the state president. We have a staff that's in Hartford. But AARP as an organization is also a large advocacy organization. And the thing that we focus on is helping people to live their best possible lives at all ages. And that always surprises people because they're thinking, no, you're just for like people 50 and over or, you know, old people. No, because if you think about it, when you improve lives for people who are older, you're also helping people who are younger. If we think about it, the ADA, which the Americans Disability Act, which put all those curb cuts out there, it wasn't just, you know, it really benefited people in wheelchairs and having disability. But what did it also do? Every mom, right, who has a stroller, every grandma who pushes it, and for kids on bikes, it's like one of the best things in the world. So what we always say with AARP is that we're looking to make the best lives for people from 8 to 80. People before 8, people after 80, but you get the sense of that inclusiveness. Back in 2012, AARP started to hear more and more about people who wanted to age in place. Up until that point, you know, that really, it was sort of a buzz that was out there, but it wasn't a very loud buzz. And then all of a sudden, 2012, there was a worldwide action by the WHO who wanted to look at how do we help people as they age. Let me give you a statistic, and this pretty much surprises people. In 2034, there will be more people in the United States who are over the age of 65 than under the age of 18. That is the first time in this country's history that that is happening. What does that mean? Housing needs changed, healthcare needs change, all kinds of aspects of how people live and operate in the world changes. So back in 2012, when we started to look at this, and you will have heard probably the term the Silver Tsunami, which is what people refer to this. We tend not to like to use that term, but people understand it. What was happening was that we started to see that people wanted not just to go into assisted living facilities, but people were saying, I like the town that I live in. I like the house that I live in. I like my community. I like my neighborhood. How do I age in place? So AARP looked around, and the WHO was starting some programs based on what they called the 8 domains of livability. And it was things like social inclusion, access to health care, access to transportation, community involvement and participation, a whole education opportunity, all kinds of aspects of everyone's life. And AARP said, you know what, that's something we want to get involved with. So they created this aging program. And what started to happen was that every state in the union has an AARP office, and every state wanted to do this a little bit differently. Here in Connecticut, what we decided was, because of the way we are such an independent state and all of our towns are very independent, we said what works for one community is not necessarily going to work for another community. We need to put it back into the community. We'll help people. We can help give you access to information. We can help educate you. We can help train you. We have a lot of assistance through AARP itself with books and videos and that kind of thing. But every town wants to go about this differently. And one of the things that I have discovered is that what works for one town does not necessarily work for another. And one of the things that I was asked was, well, of the age-friendly communities here in Connecticut, which one is most like us? And I have to say, none, because they're all very, very different. The age-friendly communities here in Connecticut, and I'll tell you, the first one was Greenwich, which joined in 2016. The next was Newtown, which is right next to me. I come from Bethel. That was 2017. In 2018, Glastonbury joined. In 2019, y'all are here. And in 2021, we kind of skipped, there was a little thing called the pandemic, sort of put a crimp in everybody's style. But Groton joined us. So those are all very, very different communities in very, very different places. You folks are about to engage on the really critical part of this, which is the community survey. Because let me tell you, having worked with a lot of different towns, what people think are the issues in a community are not necessarily the issues. And I can't tell you how many times I'd go to a town meeting and people would say, this is what we need. And then they go out and they do the community survey and they say, my goodness, Tia, what people wanted was not at all. Or what we thought was the highest priority is probably like 5th or 6th. And there's this thing here that everybody really, really wants that we didn't think was all that important. So the survey work that you do is critically important. But what's nice about joining the age-friendly community is that you do get access to a lot of information, a lot of help out of our national office. We have a whole department that is focused on nothing but this, so you get access to that. It also puts you in touch with all of these other communities, because I can bet that there is somewhere in the United States that there's a community that's dealing with some of the issues that you're going to be dealing with. And what a great way to be able to say, be able to quiz people, how did you do it? Not that that necessarily is going to work for you, but it gives you a thought process about how to approach it. So that's all I'm going to say for right now. I know you may have some questions, but I'm going to turn it over to Diane.
Thank you very much, Tia, for that information. I'm going to explain a little bit more about the benefits of membership to the AARP age-friendly community and how it could help us for what we're looking for in this designation. Membership in the network helps local leaders identify and understand community needs, serves as an organizing structure for making community improvements, fosters partnerships among community groups and local stakeholders, provides leadership opportunities for volunteers, enables changes that benefit people of all ages. In addition, membership provides a community with a public recognition for committing to becoming age-friendly, resources for identifying and assessing community needs, access to technical assistance and expert-led webinars, support and best practice materials from AARP, and it also opens us up to potential grants that we can use in our community. For more on how it can affect our town directly, in addition to what we can get from AARP, there's other benefits that we are going to be looking for from this survey, and Amber's going to speak a little bit more about that.
All right, thank you so much. I'm so excited to see such a great turnout here. And I also want to acknowledge that our first selectman, Wendy Maxdudis, is peeked in and is joining us as well. As was mentioned before, you know, we spent a lot of time on the survey looking at the 8 factors of livability and tailoring that for what we thought would make sense to questions that would make sense for our residents to answer. And that has to do with affordability issues, housing issues, transportation, and social connection, and getting out and about, how you get involved in the community. And we know those types of issues are really critical post-pandemic. Getting this information back from the community is going to be important because it will give us a real, you know, data-based information to be able to make decisions on. I am a member of the Board of Selectmen, and part of our job is to direct policy here in town. We have responsibility for the budget process, and we have to make policy decisions based on what we think is best, you know, for the community. And having some real, you know, data to support what we think our community members feel is working well in town, or in things that may be able to improve, only benefits us in making those decisions. It also, as Diana mentioned, will open up opportunities for some grants, which would be able to help fund some projects to make the town more livable. And even though the grant process is it's not a huge amount of grants, it is something that we can thoughtfully use to kind of, you know, move us along the way towards livability. The survey that we're going to be that we're asking people to take is available in hard copy, and it's available online, and it is anonymous. So we want to hear from people, and we ask some basic demographic information, but the survey is anonymous. And then all of the results will be compiled. We're going to have the survey open for a couple of months. And then when it closes in mid-September, we will be able to finish our analysis, and we hope to do another presentation to kind of report back on, you know, what we heard from people, and kind of get an idea of where things coalesced and how different priorities ranked in the community. So that just kind of gives a little bit of an overview. I think Diana are you going to talk a little more about the survey, or? Okay, great.
So again, when we're looking at our areas of livability, the goal in this is to hear from a broad swath of our community members in Simsbury, aged 50 and older, to find out really what your concerns are about aging well in Simsbury, and how, you know, if you want to age here continuously and remain living in Simsbury, how we can best do that. And what does livability and making an age-friendly community look like? We talked about our outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation, housing, social participation, respect and social inclusion, work and civil engagement, communication and information, and community and health services. And all of those questions are kind of broken down into chunks within our survey. And you'll find that there's several different parts. You know, we have a get to know you, you know, all about you part, and then about your housing situation. How do you get there here from here to there at home in your community. And we really want people to be very honest about how you're answering this, because it is going to help us best direct where our pitfalls are and what does living in Simsbury look like as you age. And it may be very different for different people, even in different age groups. Our answers may look very different for people in one particular part of the age pocket versus another particular part of the age pocket. But we do feel really strongly that getting these answers for us is going to help get a snapshot of what does aging in Simsbury look like currently, and how can we help to improve so that as people age in Simsbury, they can remain here if they choose to and live well as they're doing so. So please tell your friends and get the word out about this survey. As I said, there is a hard copy. It is also available online, and these cards are available over there. So you don't have to remember this, but for those that are watching, you can take the survey online at www.simsbury-ct.gov/agingwellsurvey. We will also have a QR code, and it will be available at the library to take the survey. We're going to make this survey available here at the Senior Center. We will also be delivering it to certain locations around town to make sure some living facilities have access to the survey. We will be at various events throughout the summer and into the early fall with the survey, because we really do want to get feedback from you and hope as many people fill out this survey as possible. At this point, I'm going to open it up and see if anybody has any questions or comments. Yes, sir. So for those watching at home, the question was, he appreciated the anonymity of our survey, but we do live in a very large town, and people may answer the questions differently depending on what part of town they live in. For example, transportation and access to events and how you get there may be very different depending on where you live within the town, and wanted to know if we have the ability to know where in town the survey answerer is coming from, because that would determine what parts of town there may be holes. Yes, the answer to your question is yes. In the very first part, the first question is, what part of Simsbury do you live in? And it is broken down by the name, but also by zip code within that. So this is going to be part of our data, as well as how many years have you lived in survey and how old are you? And it's not about again, since it's anonymous, but again, within those age groups, because somebody answering 50 to 55 versus somebody answering 60 to 65 or 66 to 70 or older, their answers to this survey may be very different, depending on the age category that you're in, as well as where you live in town and the type of housing you live in and the type of transportation that you have. What we're trying to do with this is, again, get as many people across every area of living situation and job situation and transportation and area of town that they live in as possible, so that we can get as much, the best data we can. And it's not this group of people answering and that's going to be our snapshot. We want a true snapshot of the people who are aging in Simsbury, what their answers are going to be. And as Tia mentioned, the more accessible we can make the survey, the more accessible we can make town, the better for everybody. Full disclosure, have a young adult child with a disability. This is crossover 100%. And the work I do with disabilities helps people who are aging and vice versa. And the more accessible we can make this town, both in a social as well as physically accessible town, the better off we are going to be. So thank you for that question. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Yes, do you want to come up to the microphone, or do you want me to just repeat your question?
Hi, Sue Sames, and I'm curious. It seems like we've had several different surveys, trying to make Simsbury bike friendly, and the Spirit Council, or what used to be called the Spirit Council, had something on how to make it more inclusive and diverse. What are the plans for kind of coordinating on some of these things? Because I think they're all very important issues, but it seems like there could be a lot of benefit from having these things work together.
Thank you again for that thoughtful question. I agree with you and feel that the more that we can collaborate as a community, the better off we'll be, because the information is useful to all these groups when we take these surveys. As Tia mentioned, what one area may look at may be a crossover or may be very different than what another area is looking at. And again, full disclosure, I was a part of the Spirit Council myself, so there's crossover there. And I agree, like looking at how we make our town more accessible and accepting and inclusive, age and disabilities are part of that inclusion piece and that diversity, equity, inclusion part. And, I think that's some of the part that's forgotten about or it's an afterthought. But I agree that if we can have the coordination of these surveys, I understand this population has also taken surveys over the years for various different issues. I'm sure they will be addressed in here. Did you have a follow-up? Please.
Right. Thank you for mentioning that, the library survey, because I was on the library board of trustees when we did our strategic plan survey. And part of the ideology for that was to not look at the library and ask people, what do you like about the library? But to ask people, what do you want to see in your community? And then for us to take that back and think about how does that mean, that the library responds to that. And so because I had worked on that survey, many of the ideas that we had there, I was able to help bring to our work group as we worked on this survey. But I can say on the Board of Selectmen, that is something that we see is the intersection of a lot of these things and how they come together. And I think that we are kind of in a phase right now. I don't know if it's because the pandemic is over, but there does seem to be a lot of community outreach going on and surveying going on. And we certainly don't want to tire people out with that. And we tried to keep our survey as succinct as possible and hit as many areas, but make it not too tedious. But I do think that once everybody starts getting some of this information back, we absolutely need to put it together, because I can say as a member of the board, we are kind of looking at the community as a whole and see how some of this fits. And I think it will all benefit, but there is a lot of intersection for sure. Sure.
I'll also mention that a large part of the designation for the AARP age-friendly community designation was this survey. So unfortunately, we couldn't use the information from other surveys that had already existed. We needed to have a specific survey to submit as part of the designation. So that's why we went ahead with this survey, because otherwise, you're right, there's some other information out there. But if we can get that information and make that part of our holistic package, I think that would be extremely beneficial. Yes, Wendy. So besides the survey, what else do we need to do to become an age-friendly community? This question is for Tia Murphy.
All right. Great question. The survey is sort of the beginning part of this. And then after that, what you will do is craft a plan. And, you'll analyze the information and come up with a plan of how you're going to, what you think you want to approach and what do you want to achieve. And that plan, interestingly enough, since you're the select person, has to be signed off by the highest elected official in a community. How do you like that? And the reason for that is that one of the things that we've discovered as we've gone forward in this process is a lot of times you get survey work or things start, and then they don't really progress from there. And if you don't have the input and the support from your government, it's very hard to make things happen. And so when you have that bully pulpit, if I can call it that, that makes it that really helps. Once you have that plan, you submit that, and that's somewhat of an iterative process because the people who will be reviewing it at AARP have seen many different ones. And so sometimes they'll say, well, think about this, think about that. It will get crafted. And then once that is fully accepted and you're accepted into this, and that is your plan of action, then you have 5 years to achieve your goal. And you regularly have to report on what's your progress, what were your goals, how have you achieved them, what have you not? Because one of the things that we've also learned, now we've been doing this for 10 years, and again, every state in the union and the territories, you can imagine life in Hawaii is really different than it is here in Connecticut, right? And so the issues that they're facing with aging are very different than ours. But one of the things that you'll find as you go through this process is you start to shimmy and shape things. That all of a sudden it seemed as though this was where you were going and what you needed to get done, either you've achieved it or in the process of achieving it, you've realized that really means you need to do these 3 other things in order to get something done. For example, let's say I live in Bethel. One of the big things and we're not an age-friendly community. We have decided not to go for that designation, but we have adopted a livability framework and thought process in everything that we do. And one of the things that we realized was, we didn't have a lot of sidewalks. So we had a lot of kids walking in the street to school, and we were having a lot of problems with that. And the other thing was we had street lamps on our main road, but we didn't have it on other roads. Well, in the process of going through those 2 things, we realized one really worked with the other, and we did apply for some grants and got some great streetscape grants, which if we hadn't been thinking about things in that kind of context, we never would have done. So that's part of the process. So as you go through that 5-year plan, that will move you along and you'll be able to see what kind of achievable things. And AARP will work with you on that and helping you out with different aspects of things. Any other questions? One thing I will say, and this is, I love when a community comes together and starts to think about this because, like I said, it's not everybody ages, right? Let's do a little. Hopefully. Well, but think about this. Okay, I want you all to do something with me. Okay, take a breath in, hold it, let it out. You have now been granted aging, right? Every time you take a breath, you're aging because you've moved into the next minute and the next minute and the next minute. And if you start to think about aging in that kind of a context, as opposed to making it just an age, you suddenly think about things very, very differently. So aging is for all of us, and it's also a way of thinking about not just your town, but also your home. And what can you do in your own home to help make it age-friendly as well? So there are things that you can start to do at a younger age. You may not think of it as something that's particularly, helping you age in place. Like, how many people here have stairs in their house? How many people, keep your hands up. How many of you have banisters on both sides? you see how many hands just went down? I never realized how important that was until I had a little collision with my cat, and at the top of the stairs, and wound up going down the stairs. There's a banister as I go up the stairs, which means it's on my right side. Yeah, but when I was falling down, would be on my left. And when I grabbed for the banister, there was nothing there. That was my aha moment for why I needed banisters on both sides. And that's not just for older folks, that's for anybody. That's for our grandkids. That's for our teenagers. It's for anybody. It's a safety thing. So when you start thinking about everything in your built environment, where you live, where you access, it really changes how you view your life and how you can make your surroundings that much more age-friendly.
Are there any other questions or comments? I'm going to mention, since Tia mentioned living in your home, I did want to mention that Oak Hill has a smart home on wheels, and they do have some demonstrations, and there are some free events, and I can keep this flyer over on the table, but I do know that July 15th from 12 to 2, they're doing a presentation on fall detection. August 22nd, from 12 to 2, routines with Alexa versus Google. September 6th, from 6 to 8, smart lights and smart plugs. October 6th, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., entertainment, the Fire TV Cube, adaptive Xbox controller. In November, they're going to be doing a presentation on low vision, hearing impairment, and Alexa capability. And in December, security, motion detection, door and window sensors, and smart locks. So these are things that AARP sponsors, and they're great technology in your home as you age. So I just wanted to make a plug for that.
And I have a bunch of them.
And we do have a bunch of them that you can take home with you, and we'll put them on the table. But again, we look forward to hearing your responses. Be sure to fill out either a hard copy of the survey or go online, again, to simsbury/ct.gov/aging well survey and take the survey online, or you can visit it at the library. Yes, Jan? If you fill out a hard copy, you can, if you do it today, you can leave it with us here, but you can drop it off here at the Senior Center at Eno Memorial Hall. We will be collecting all hard copies here. And again, the survey is officially debuting now and will be available and online through September 15th. And then we will be collecting them all from certain places, but also if you have one and you drop it off, please do so here at the Senior Center. Any other questions? Otherwise, thank you very much. Thank you very much for attending. And as a special treat for all of you for coming out tonight, we do have some ice cream to make ice cream sundaes in the back. I know that's really all why you came. Everybody came out for the ice cream. But again, thank you for coming tonight. We look forward to hearing your responses, and enjoy the rest of your summer.